All right, well, Sean, we're done with the top 10 lists. No more top 10 lists this episode, except, wait, it says we've got another one on the outline. It says it's time for the monthly 10.
Yes, Jonathan, I gave you a very important task, a list I am very passionate about, that I really need 10 ranked items here for this list, Jonathan. Why don't you tell us what is the list you've made for this month?
Okay. I kind of broke the rules. Well, you'll see. So this was your words from the last episode.
Yes.
I typed them down. You said 2025 is divisible by the number 5. What are the 10 best years divisible by 5 in the history of mankind? That was your assignment to me. And I spent a lot of time chewing on this. I looked at this ridiculous assignment. I spent some of my very limited recent free time Googling. And I realized 2 things, Sean. 1, Ronald Reagan did not die in a year divisible by 5. And 2, there was no way I had time to do this to your or my satisfaction. So knowing those 2 things that I couldn't make, because I did initially go, didn't Ronald Reagan die in 2005? That would be funny to list. He died in 2004, so I couldn't do that joke. And then I was like, man, I don't know if I have time to do all this research. So I slightly changed the assignment. And instead, I have ranked the 10 best years in the history of Universal Century Gundam that are divisible by 5, because I had made an entire Gundam timeline for my Giant Robots class for a joke slide, and I had it all ready to go. This also made me realize that I do absolutely categorically know Gundam history better than actual human history, but I think that was probably inevitable at this point.
You know, for all the things that it just tells us about you as a person, Jonathan, I will accept this pivot, let's call it, in the list. Because at least I will get a list of 10 years divisible by 5, which is what I want. You know, I mean,
you'll get
as I've said before, it's a nice number. You know, I like anything divisible by 5, and that's what I want to get.
All right, well, and I thought about this in terms of, I tried to rank it as the most significant 10 years in the history of Universal Century Gundam that we know and have dated. Starting with number 10 is UC 0010, the 10th year of the Universal Century, and that is the year that Yuri Toranov Minovsky was born, the man who would later go on to discover the Minovsky particle. So his birth, number 10, there are some more, he'll show up on this list again, but his birth was enough, I think, to make the top 10, because he's a very important guy.
I mean, if he was never born, none of the rest of Gundam would have happened, for better or worse.
Yeah. My number 9 is UC 0090. This is the year where the space colony Sweetwater is remodeled into a refugee facility, and the year the Federation forces organized the new auxiliary unit Londo Bell. Both of these events setting the stage for Char's counterattack. Char's counterattack not eligible for the list because it happens in 0093, but this is a year where those 2 things happen, and we get on the path towards Char's counterattack, so I think that's enough for the list.
It's pretty good, and I've always liked the name Londo Bell for like a special task force.
Yes, it's great. Number 8 is UC 0050. This is the year that humanity crossed the milestone of 9 billion people living in space, or 82% of the human population. And, you know, that's just a very big milestone. Obviously, this is around the time where certain difficulties are going to start happening in the world of Universal Century Gundam, because those space colonies are going to be getting ideas. And it is because there are just so fucking many of them out there in space.
All those damn dirty space noids just polluting our space around Earth.
Wow, okay, you've taken a side, I see. My number 7... and this is, I didn't realize how 7-themed this is. This was an accident, but it works because it's UC 0070, and it is the year that Luna 2 was moved to Lagrange Point 3 to begin construction of Side 7, where the Gundam would eventually be developed in secret and later piloted by one Amuro Ray.
I think that was maybe one of the most impartial sentences to anyone who's not seen Gundam ever.
Oh, there's a better one coming up, Sean. Don't worry. All right, number 6, again, I guess themed to the number, I didn't do this on purpose, is UC 0060, and this is the year that Bright Noah was born. And, you know, here's the thing. You could argue for him to go lower, you could argue for him to go higher. My argument is that if this guy hadn't been born, there's about a dozen wars humanity would have lost. We'd have all been totally fucked without this guy. He pulls it together for the 1 Year War. He pulls it together for the Grips conflict. He pulls it together for the first Neo-Zeon War, and the second Neo-Zeon War, and the third Neo-Zeon War, and then his own son becomes a terrorist. I mean, Bright Noah, extraordinarily important. You know, he would be in the future history books of Universal Century Gundam like the most important military commander in their fucking history. You know, he's a hero. God damn it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. All right, my number 5 is UC 0035, which is the year that construction of Side 3 began in Lagrange Point 2, originally named Munzo. This is the side that would eventually be known as Xeon. And so that makes it very important to the history of this century of fictional speculative human history.
It's very true. I mean, if that never happened, I mean, none of it, if the space noise would have gotten any ideas in their heads.
Number 4 is UC 0080, which is the year that the one-year war ended. The one-year war started in 0079, and it ends on January 1st, 0080. This is when the Earth Federation and the re-established Republic of Xeon signed the Granada Treaty at the lunar city of Granada. Also on January 1st, 0080, Bernie dies on Side 6 in War in the Pocket. Less significant to the world, part of the tragedy is that no one will even know who Bernie was, but he dies, and that's fucking sad, because he was cool.
Yeah, Bernie was cool. I can back that up.
Yeah. All right, these top 3 were really hard to split, but I did my best. My number 3 pick, divisible by 5, is 0075. This is the year that Casval Rem Daikun assumed the identity of Shar Aznable and enrolled in the ZMF Officer Training School, where he also began mercilessly fucking with Garmazabi. This is also the year where the ZMF commissioned its first Musai-class light cruisers and began mass production of the Zaku. So all sorts of important things going on here. Obviously the most important being the creation of our boy Shar Aznable, and him just starting his, again, merciless campaign against Garmazabi that would last for the next 4 years until Garmazabi's untimely death. But obviously a monumental point in the history of this race, even for those in the world of Gundam who don't have, the luxury of falling in love with Shar as a fictional character that we do. He would eventually try to crash an asteroid into the Earth. So it is objectively a very important year in the history of the world.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Shar is absolutely a pivotal political figure. And this is when he just starts his endless petty harassment of Garma that will eventually escalate into getting him killed.
Yes. Number 2 is 0065, which is the year that the Minovsky particle was discovered, as I mentioned earlier. Obviously, this is the most important technological development of the universal century, since it is the factor that makes mobile suits necessary at all and changes the course of human warfare in space. Lest we forget, the Minovsky particle is what disables radar and things in space, and so you got to get up close and personal. This is also the year where the first political schism between Zeon Zoom Daikun and the Zabi family was revealed. So a lot of things going on this year that would lead to conflict about 14 years later.
Yep, and it all comes down to that fucking Minovsky particle. That's the whole thing.
Yep. Number 1, though, and I think this is a strong choice for number 1. It's the year 0045. Now, why the year 0045? It's because that's the year that Zeon Zoom Daikun, over on Side 3 Munzo, began preaching Kantalism, which is a synthesism of Eraism, which is the belief that Earth is sacred and humanity must leave it in peace, and Sideism, that sides should be treated as sovereign nations. And I think this is number 1 because the philosophy of Kantalism is the catalyst for all future universal century conflicts. Zeon Zoom Daikun gave language to the fundamental arguments underlying every war, from the one-year war to the Grips conflict to Shar's rebellion, even into Victory Gundam, where humanity just kind of fucks itself to death. The Minovsky particle, arguably more significant in so much as it made that war possible to fight, but I think while that changes the technological basis of war, the idea of Kantalism as advanced by Zeon Zoom Daikun is the philosophy that those wars are fought over, which I ultimately think makes it the most important of these years divisible by 5. Would you agree?
I think so. It's the whole, it's the whole ideological foundation of everything that really transpires from that point forward, is people taking this sort of text, this idea, and, fighting over their own personal interpretations of it or their attempts to bury it in its entirety. So I agree. I think it is, it is a pivotal moment in the history of Gundam in the Universal Century.
Sean, are you disappointed I crapped out on your initial idea, or are you happy that we got to talk about Kantalism?
There's a part of me that, thinks like, you pulled the parachute out, you tried to get out of it, but I appreciate that you found the absolute fucking nerdiest way possible to try to weasel your way out of doing what I knew at the time I came up with this stupid fucking idea for the list was like an absolutely unreasonable quantity of research if you wanted to take it seriously, which is to go through 5,000-ish years of history and trying to find the ones divisible by 5 and use some sort of undetermined criteria to say that they're important. I definitely knew that it was like a crazy task I set out for you, and I admire the way you tried to avoid it.
I did spend, in terms of crazy research, though, I did spend an unreasonable amount of time trying to figure out if, in the continuity of Mobile Suit Crossbone Gundam, if Kincaid Now, which is the name of Seabook Arno, if Seabook and Cecily's, if their child was born in UC 165, or 135, because in 136 is when you have the Crossbone Gundam Skullheart novel where we find out, no, it's actually Steel 7, where we see them at their bakery and they have a newborn child, but it's unclear whether that child was born in 136 or 135. I thought it would have been funny to put that on the list, but I just, as a scholar, I couldn't back it up because I wasn't sure if that baby was born in 135 or not.
And, and I think you would have had that problem if you had been going on originality of the list, of, like, going far enough back in history. Like, it's hard to say who, like, exactly what year, was Shakespeare born. Like, we don't really know. Like, we can take some guesses. We kind of sort of know. But are you 100% positive? Like, are you going to stake your fucking reputation on it? That's a bigger question for sure.
All right, Sean. Well, you're up in the barrel next.
Yes.
And for the month of February is the month of romance. And nothing says romance like anime. So, here's my specific charge to you, Sean. Okay. I want you, Sean Chapman, to come up with 10 anime ships that you don't think have been widely imagined before and rank them from least to most scintillating. Now, every ship has probably been come up by someone on the internet in some form. So I think it would be unreasonable to say you have to find 10 ships that no one has ever come up with. Because, again, that would involve going through a lot of message boards in lots of different languages, frankly. So just ones that you think are unusual, not in the popular consciousness, but I want you to come up with 10 ships. I want you to rank them, and I want you to tell us what your idea of romance is through this top 10 list.
I mean, everybody listening to the podcast knows I'm the king of love. Like, that's what they call me out in the streets. And so I'm going to, like, level that reputation and that vast body of experience here to school you fools, and come up with, as you say, the most scintillating, the hottest ships you never thought of. The top 10 hottest ships you never thought of. You can find it here or maybe on BuzzFeed. I don't know if BuzzFeed has done that or not. But I'm going to do it. And I think you're going to be blown away by what I come up with.